Hey friend, welcome to Sleepy History World. Before we begin tonight's journey, I have a small favor to ask. If this channel becomes a place you enjoy returning to, a place where you can relax, unwind, and gently drift off to sleep while exploring the past, please consider subscribing. Every subscription helps this little corner of history grow, and it lets me continue creating long, peaceful stories for you. Now, settle in, get comfortable, maybe dim the lights, and let the noise of the modern world slowly fade away. Tonight, we're stepping into one of the most dangerous places a woman could ever call home, the court of King Henry VIII. At first glance, it seems like a dream: glittering palaces, priceless jewels, magnificent feasts, and the highest title a woman in England could ever hope to hold. But behind the golden crowns and velvet gowns lies a life filled with impossible expectations, whispered conspiracies, and the constant fear that tomorrow could change everything. What did it really feel like to wake each morning as Henry VIII's wife? What was it like to eat beside the most powerful king in England, knowing that one wrong word, one failed pregnancy, or even a shift in his affection could destroy everything you had? How did these queens spend their ordinary days when they weren't making history? And what did they see, hear, and feel inside the grand palaces that history books rarely describe? Tonight we'll leave behind the famous paintings and dramatic headlines to uncover the quieter truth. We'll wander through candlelit corridors before dawn, sit beside roaring Tudor fireplaces, stroll through fragrant palace gardens, attend glittering royal banquets, and discover what everyday life was truly like for the women who shared Henry VIII's throne. So, take a slow, deep breath, get cozy beneath your blanket, and let your imagination carry you back nearly 500 years to the magnificent and deeply dangerous world of Tudor England. Imagine waking before the first light of dawn in a palace, so vast that your footsteps echo through endless corridors lined with tapestries, polished stone, and flickering candles. Every servant you pass bows their head, every noble watches your expression, and every whisper behind your back may shape your future. You are not simply a queen. You are the wife of Henry VIII, the most powerful man in England, a king whose favour can lift an ordinary family to unimaginable wealth or destroy an ancient noble house overnight. From the outside, life appears dazzling beyond imagination. Jewels sparkle on your gowns. Musicians perform as you dine. Hunting parties roam magnificent forests, and banquets stretch late into the evening beneath glittering chandeliers. Yet beneath all that gold lies a constant, exhausting fear. Every smile must be measured, every word carefully chosen, and every day begins with one silent question: will the king still love you tomorrow? The palace itself never truly sleeps. Long before sunrise, servants hurry through chilly passageways carrying buckets of hot water, baskets of fresh bread, and embroidered garments worth more than the annual income of many villages. Ladies in waiting enter your chambers to help dress you layer by layer. Fine linen, silk stockings, stiff corsets, embroidered gowns, heavy velvet robes trimmed with fur, necklaces of pearls, rings, set with precious stones, and finally the elaborate French hood or English gable hood framing your face. Dressing can take hours, and every detail matters, because the Queen's appearance reflects the glory of the crown itself. You cannot simply wear what feels comfortable. Every colour, jewel, and fabric speaks a language of status and power. Breakfast is surprisingly modest compared to the magnificent feasts remembered in paintings. Fresh bread, cheese, fruit when available, ale or watered wine, perhaps eggs or fish depending on the religious calendar. Meat is plentiful for the wealthy, though fasting days require strict obedience to church traditions. Yet even while eating, privacy is rare. Courtiers enter and leave with messages. Ambassadors request audiences. Ladies discuss court gossip. And officials seek royal approval. A queen is almost never alone. Even moments that seem personal are quietly observed by dozens of attentive eyes. As Henry's wife, your responsibilities extend far beyond looking graceful beside the king. You become the symbolic mother of the kingdom, expected to display generosity, wisdom, religious devotion, and perfect dignity. You distribute charity to the poor, support monasteries or churches, sponsor scholars and artists, welcome foreign ambassadors, and act as a gentle influence upon the king whenever possible. Many people approach you with petitions because they believe the Queen's compassion may soften Henry's decisions. Families ruined by debts, prisoners seeking mercy, merchants requesting privileges, and nobles hoping for advancement all attempt to win your favour. Every request forces you to balance kindness with political caution, yet no responsibility outweighs one overwhelming expectation: producing a healthy male heir. Every conversation, every celebration, every prayer eventually circles back to the same subject. The future of the Tudor dynasty depends upon your body. Pregnancy becomes not simply a personal journey, but a national concern. Physicians examine your health. Astrologers calculate fortunate dates. Priests offer blessings, and the entire kingdom waits for news. If you become pregnant, church bells ring with hope. If the child is a daughter, people smile politely while quietly hiding their disappointment. If the pregnancy ends in miscarriage, grief is accompanied by growing political danger. Each failed pregnancy weakens your position and strengthens your rivals. The pressure grows heavier because everyone understands Henry's personality. In his youth, he is charming, athletic, educated, and remarkably handsome by the standards of his age. He enjoys music, hunting, dancing, languages, and intellectual conversation. Visitors from across Europe praise his confidence and magnificent appearance. Spending time with him can genuinely feel exciting. He laughs loudly, tells stories with enthusiasm, and rewards loyalty generously. But beneath that charm lies an unpredictable temper. When disappointed, Henry rarely accepts blame himself. Instead, someone else must become responsible for failure. Court life revolves around entertainment. Grand banquets display roasted swans, peacocks decorated with colourful feathers, venison pies filled with exotic spices, sweet pastries, and imported fruits that only the wealthiest can afford. Musicians perform while jesters entertain guests with clever jokes and acrobatics. Dancing follows, and every noble carefully observes who dances with whom, who receives the king's attention, and who appears neglected. Even the smallest glance exchanged across a crowded hall can spark rumours lasting for months. Court gossip spreads faster than official announcements, and a careless comment whispered in confidence may reach Henry's ears before sunset. Privacy within marriage barely exists. The royal household contains hundreds of servants performing countless duties. Gentlewomen sleep nearby, guards protect every entrance, secretaries manage correspondence, and physicians monitor health. Even intimate moments remain surrounded by protocol. When the Queen prepares for childbirth, witnesses may gather to prevent rumours about the baby's identity. Royal lives belong not only to themselves but to the kingdom. Religion shapes nearly every hour of the day. Morning prayers, evening prayers, church services, feast days, saints' celebrations, and religious observances fill the calendar. During Henry's reign, however, religion itself becomes dangerously political. His decision to separate from the authority of the Pope transforms England forever. As Queen, your personal beliefs suddenly become matters of national importance. Supporting the King strengthens your position but risks alienating powerful Catholics. Resisting him may preserve your conscience while endangering your life. Every prayer can carry political consequences. Friendships are equally complicated. Ladies in waiting provide companionship, yet some secretly report conversations to influential nobles. Foreign ambassadors eagerly collect information about the Queen's mood and marriage. Noble families attempt to place their daughters close to the Queen, hoping proximity will bring future opportunities. Genuine trust becomes a rare luxury because ambition surrounds every relationship. The greatest danger often comes not from enemies, but from changing affection. Henry's interests rarely remain fixed forever. A new face at court, a lively conversation, or youthful beauty may capture his attention. As months pass, you notice another lady receiving longer conversations, warmer smiles, and expensive gifts. The realization arrives slowly but unmistakably. Servants begin carrying messages elsewhere. Courtiers subtly shift their loyalties. Invitations change. Suddenly, the Queen, who once stood at the center of royal life, finds herself increasingly isolated. History remembers Henry's 6 wives, but living through those experiences would feel terrifying rather than dramatic. Catherine of Aragon entered England as a respected princess and spent decades believing her marriage secure before finding herself rejected. Anne Boleyn rose with astonishing speed, captivating the king and transforming English history, only to lose everything within a matter of years. Jane Seymour finally gave Henry the long-desired son, but died shortly after childbirth, celebrated as his favourite because death preserved her from future disappointment. Anne of Cleves survived by accepting a peaceful separation, wisely recognizing that safety sometimes mattered more than pride. Catherine Howard experienced youth, excitement, and tragedy in rapid succession. Catherine Parr demonstrated remarkable intelligence and caution, managing to outlive the king himself through patience and political skill. Imagine constantly comparing yourself to those who came before you. Every queen inherits not only magnificent jewels, but also frightening memories. Portraits hanging throughout the palace silently remind everyone of previous wives. Courtiers remember old scandals, old celebrations, and old executions. Every decision carries the invisible weight of history. Beyond palace walls, ordinary people view the Queen through a mixture of admiration and curiosity. During royal progresses across England, crowds gather hoping to glimpse the royal couple. Villagers decorate streets, church bells ring, and children wave as richly dressed horses pass by. To them, the Queen appears almost magical, glittering beneath embroidered fabrics and sparkling gemstones. Few can imagine that beneath those magnificent clothes lies someone carrying extraordinary emotional burdens. Illness presents another constant threat. Medicine in the 16th century remains limited. Physicians recommend herbal remedies, bloodletting, unusual diets, and prayers with equal confidence. A simple infection may become deadly within days. Childbirth is especially dangerous, claiming countless women's lives regardless of wealth or status. Even queens surrounded by the finest doctors cannot escape these risks. Every pregnancy becomes a gamble between hope and mortality. The changing seasons influence palace life. Winter brings cold stone rooms despite roaring fireplaces. Thick tapestries help retain warmth, yet drafts slip beneath doors and through windows. Summer fills gardens with roses and lavender, while hunting expeditions provide opportunities for outdoor entertainment. Spring symbolizes renewal and fresh political ambitions. Autumn marks harvest celebrations and preparations for another long winter. Imagine the palace growing quiet, long after midnight. The laughter from the banquet hall has faded. Musicians have packed away their instruments, and servants move through dim corridors, carrying only candles that cast long dancing shadows across the stone walls. This is one of the rare moments when the grandeur of the Tudor court gives way to silence. Yet even in these peaceful hours, sleep does not come easily. A queen's mind is filled with questions that never truly disappear. Did the king seem pleased today? Did an ambassador misinterpret a conversation? Did a careless remark made by a lady in waiting reach the wrong ears? In Henry VIII's England, tomorrow's fortunes often begin with today's whispers. When dawn finally breaks, the palace awakens with astonishing speed. Bells ring from nearby chapels, kitchens roar to life with fires crackling beneath enormous iron pots. Stable boys rush to prepare horses, and servants hurry through passageways carrying fresh rushes to spread across floors. The smell of baking bread mixes with smoke from fireplaces, beeswax, candles, damp stone, and fragrant herbs scattered throughout the chambers. Despite all its luxury, a Tudor palace is not spotless by modern standards. Animals wander through courtyards, smoke lingers indoors, and the scent of perfumes often serves to disguise less pleasant odours rather than replace them. As queen, you cannot wander freely through the palace whenever you wish. Every movement follows custom and ceremony. If you decide to visit the chapel, ladies accompany you. If you walk through the gardens, guards remain nearby. If you travel beyond the palace, dozens or even hundreds of attendants join the procession. Privacy becomes something almost impossible to experience. Even writing a personal letter often involves secretaries preparing materials, messengers delivering correspondence, and trusted servants standing nearby. A queen belongs as much to the institution of monarchy as she does to herself. The royal wardrobe deserves a kingdom of its own. Hundreds of garments are carefully stored in enormous wooden chests, lined with fragrant herbs to protect expensive fabrics from insects. Velvet imported from Italy, silks from the East, fine wool woven by English craftsmen, lace, satin, ermine, sable, and embroidered cloth. Of gold all compete for attention. Every public appearance requires thoughtful planning. Certain colours symbolize wealth and authority. Purple remains especially prestigious, while crimson and deep blue reflect royal dignity. Pearls become a favourite decoration, representing purity and noble status. The weight of these garments can be exhausting. Layers upon layers of fabric, tightly fitted bodices, elaborate sleeves, heavy jewelry, and structured skirts transform simply walking into a careful exercise of grace. Jewelry is far more than decoration. Every necklace, brooch, and ring communicates political messages. A ruby given by the king signals affection. A family heirloom demonstrates noble ancestry. A pendant bearing religious imagery declares devotion. Even the choice of gemstones may attract attention from ambassadors eager to interpret the smallest details of royal relationships. Foreign visitors study appearances carefully because they often reveal more than official speeches. Conversation at court resembles an elaborate game where everyone knows the rules but few truly master them. During meals or social gatherings, discussions flow between literature, religion, diplomacy, hunting, music, and European politics. Speaking too boldly risks offending powerful listeners. Remaining too quiet may suggest ignorance or insecurity. Clever queens learn to guide conversations gently, encouraging others to reveal their thoughts while exposing very little of their own. Wit becomes a valuable form of protection. Henry himself enjoys surrounding his court with brilliant minds. Scholars translate ancient texts, composers create new music, architects design magnificent buildings, and artists paint portraits intended to impress Europe. If the king is in a good mood, evenings may include philosophical debates or musical performances lasting for hours. Henry plays several instruments and appreciates educated companions. A queen capable of discussing theology, languages, or history may genuinely capture his admiration. Yet admiration alone never guarantees permanence. The royal hunt occupies an important place in court life. Before sunrise, horses are saddled while hunting dogs bark with excitement. Noblemen dress in fine riding clothes. Ladies wear specially prepared gowns suitable for riding, and the entire company rides into forests stretching for miles. Hunting is not simply entertainment. It demonstrates royal power over the land, strengthens political relationships, and allows the king to display his athletic abilities. For Henry, especially during his younger years, hunting represents freedom, competition, and excitement. A queen participates when possible, though often observing rather than pursuing dangerous game herself. Back inside the palace, entertainment continues in many forms. Masks combine elaborate costumes, music, poetry, and theatrical performances into dazzling spectacles. Professional actors, court musicians, dancers, and even members of the royal family participate. Costumes glitter with gold thread. Painted scenery transforms great halls into mythical landscapes, and candles illuminate every performance with warm, flickering light. These evenings offer temporary escape from political anxieties, though alliances and rivalries remain hidden beneath every elegant smile. Letters arriving from across Europe constantly reshape life at court. Messengers ride for days or weeks carrying sealed documents reporting wars, royal births, marriages, deaths, trade agreements, and religious disputes. News travels slowly by modern standards, but still carries enormous importance. A victory in France, unrest in Scotland, or conflict within the Holy Roman Empire may instantly alter England's diplomatic priorities. Queens often read correspondence carefully, aware that international politics directly affect their own security. The education expected of a queen surprises many modern readers. Noblewomen receive instruction in languages, music, dancing, religion, household management, and etiquette from an early age. Some, like Catherine Parr, become highly educated, reading Latin, French, and Italian, while engaging with important religious thinkers. Intelligence can become one of a queen's greatest strengths, allowing her to advise the king thoughtfully and earn respect from scholars. Yet displaying too much independence also carries risks if others perceive it as challenging royal authority. Children transform palace life completely. If the queen gives birth, celebrations spread across the kingdom. Bells ring in churches, bonfires blaze in towns, and nobles send expensive gifts. Wet nurses, physicians, tutors, and servants gather to care for the royal infant. Yet motherhood remains strangely distant. Royal children spend much of their upbringing in separate households, supervised by carefully selected attendants. Although queens love their children deeply, political responsibilities and court customs often limit ordinary family life. Even birthdays and milestones become public events with diplomatic significance. The constant flow of visitors means the palace resembles a bustling city rather than a private home. Ambassadors from France, Spain, Venice, and the Holy Roman Empire seek audiences. Bishops discuss church matters, judges present legal questions, merchants negotiate trade privileges, artists display new works, inventors demonstrate unusual devices, foreign travellers describe distant lands few English people will ever see. Every visitor brings fresh opportunities, but also fresh risks. Rumours spread with astonishing speed. A queen seen smiling during conversation with a foreign ambassador may suddenly become the subject of speculation about secret alliances. Missing a church service due to illness might inspire whispers questioning religious devotion. Wearing an unfamiliar piece of jewellery could provoke endless discussion about hidden meanings. In a world without newspapers or instant communication, gossip fills the gaps left by limited information. Sometimes these stories fade harmlessly. Sometimes they change lives forever. The king's moods determine the emotional climate of the entire court. If Henry returns victorious from hunting or receives favourable diplomatic news, the palace buzzes with confidence and celebration. Banquets grow longer, gifts become more generous, and laughter echoes through great halls. But if bad news arrives or the king suffers pain from old injuries, an uneasy silence settles over everyone. Courtiers speak more carefully, servants move more quietly, and even musicians sense the need for restraint. One of the greatest challenges facing any queen is recognizing that nearly everyone has ambitions. Noble families dream of greater influence. Courtiers seek prestigious positions. Ambassadors pursue favorable treaties. Church leaders defend religious interests. Merchants desire profitable privileges. Every conversation contains hidden motives beneath polite words. Learning whom to trust becomes a lifelong lesson, and mistakes often carry irreversible consequences. Winter evenings inside the palace possess a unique atmosphere. Massive fireplaces roar with burning oak logs, while richly embroidered tapestries help trap precious warmth. Outside, cold winds whistle around stone towers, but inside, candlelight reflects from polished silver dishes and jeweled goblets. Storytellers entertain guests with legends of King Arthur, ancient heroes, and miraculous saints. Musicians perform gentle melodies while ladies work delicate embroidery. Picture yourself standing beside an enormous window as rain taps gently against the leaded glass. Beyond the palace walls, fields stretch into the distance, dotted with villages where ordinary families rise before dawn to milk cows, bake bread, and work the land. Their lives are difficult, but in many ways they possess something a queen rarely enjoys: certainty. They know where they will sleep tomorrow, whom they will dine with, and what is expected of them. Inside the royal palace, certainty is a luxury that disappears almost as quickly as it arrives. Every day begins with new possibilities and new dangers, and the higher your position, the farther there is to fall. The rhythm of court life depends entirely on the king. If Henry decides to leave one palace for another, the entire royal household transforms into a moving city. Hundreds of servants begin packing furniture, tapestries, silver tableware, clothing, books, weapons, musical instruments, and kitchen supplies. Wagons line up for miles. Horses are saddled before sunrise. Cooks prepare food for the journey, and messengers ride ahead to ensure the next palace is ready. When the royal procession finally departs, it is one of the largest spectacles most English villagers will ever witness. Soldiers in polished armour march in formation, brightly dressed nobles ride magnificent horses, banners flutter in the breeze, and richly decorated carriages carry members of the royal family. Dust rises from the roads as the endless procession slowly winds across the countryside. For the Queen, these journeys provide a welcome change of scenery. Yet they are anything but restful. Every destination brings new hosts to greet, local officials to acknowledge, churches to visit, and noble families eager to make favourable impressions. Even while travelling, the responsibilities of queenship never pause. Every smile offered to the crowd represents the dignity of the monarchy itself. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Tudor royalty is the constant attention paid to appearance. Beauty is not simply admired, it becomes political. Pale skin is considered fashionable because it suggests a life free from manual labour. Women avoid the sun whenever possible, using hats, veils, and shaded gardens to preserve a fair complexion. Cosmetics are applied carefully, though some ingredients contain substances now known to be harmful. Hair is hidden beneath elaborate headpieces, with only carefully arranged sections visible. Every portrait painted of the Queen serves a purpose beyond decoration. It becomes a statement to foreign courts, an image of stability, elegance, fertility, and royal authority. Portrait artists spend weeks, sometimes months, capturing every embroidered thread, every jewel, and every detail of expensive fabrics. These paintings travel across Europe, allowing distant kings and princes to judge England's Queen without ever meeting her. Every brushstroke becomes part of international diplomacy. The palace gardens offer one of the few places where life briefly feels peaceful. Carefully arranged flower beds bloom with roses, lilies, violets, lavender, and marigolds. Neatly trimmed hedges create quiet pathways where noble women stroll while discussing literature, family matters, or the latest court gossip. Fruit trees provide apples, pears, cherries, and plums during warmer months. The scent of herbs fills the air, not only because they are beautiful, but because they are useful in cooking and medicine. Birds sing from branches overhead, while fountains provide gentle background sounds that momentarily drown out the endless conversations of court life. Even here, however, solitude remains almost impossible. Ladies accompany the Queen everywhere, ensuring she is never truly alone. A private walk often becomes an informal political meeting as advisors seize the opportunity to present requests or discuss delicate matters away from crowded halls. The Queen's personal chapel provides moments of genuine reflection. Candlelight flickers against carved wooden panels as priests lead prayers in Latin. Incense drifts slowly through the air, mixing with the scent of melted wax and polished wood. For many queens, faith offers comfort during periods of uncertainty. Long before doctors or counselors, prayer becomes the place where fears are quietly carried. Whether asking for a healthy child, the king's affection, or simple peace of mind, these silent moments may be the closest a queen comes to true privacy. Festivals transform the atmosphere of the palace entirely. Christmas, Easter, and other important celebrations fill the calendar with magnificent feasts, elaborate decorations, tournaments, theatrical performances, and religious ceremonies. During Christmas, greenery decorates halls despite the cold winter weather. Candles illuminate enormous banqueting rooms, while musicians perform festive melodies. Noble guests exchange expensive gifts, often chosen as much for political symbolism as personal affection. The Queen distributes alms to the poor, reinforcing the monarchy's image of generosity and Christian duty. Food during these celebrations reaches astonishing levels of extravagance. Entire roasted boars are presented decorated with herbs and fruits. Giant pies conceal birds that fly out when the crust is opened, astonishing guests. Sweet dishes shaped into castles, mythical creatures, or royal emblems display the incredible skills of palace cooks. Sugar sculptures, although temporary, are considered masterpieces because sugar itself remains one of Europe's greatest luxuries. Entertainment frequently continues late into the night. Noble couples dance intricate routines requiring grace, memory, and perfect timing. Mistakes are noticed immediately, making even dancing a subtle performance of status and education. The Queen is expected to participate with elegance, despite the physical exhaustion caused by heavy clothing and hours of formal ceremony. The education of young noblewomen at court reflects the expectations placed upon future queens. Girls learn graceful manners from childhood. They practice dancing until movements appear effortless. They study music, needlework, reading, writing, and languages while observing older women navigate the complexities of court life. Many dream of marrying into powerful families, believing palace life represents the height of success. Few fully understand the sacrifices required until they experience them firsthand. Meanwhile, the palace kitchens operate almost without interruption. Hundreds of workers chop vegetables, prepare sauces, roast meats, bake bread, and organize enormous quantities of food every day. Fresh fish arrives from rivers and coastal towns. Game from royal forests fills storage rooms. Barrels of ale and wine line cellar walls. Bakers work before sunrise, while butchers, pastry cooks, and confectioners each specialize in their own craft. Feeding the royal household requires extraordinary organization, and the kitchens alone employ more people than some entire villages. News from London occasionally arrives carrying unsettling reminders of the wider world. Disease spreads through crowded streets. Fires destroy homes built close together. Harvest failures threaten rising food prices. Political unrest simmers among those unhappy with religious reforms or new taxes. Although the palace appears distant from these hardships, the Queen understands that a kingdom's stability depends upon the well-being of its people. Charity, diplomacy, and careful leadership become more important than ever. Foreign ambassadors often describe Henry's court as one of Europe's grandest, but they also recognize its unpredictability. They observe how quickly fortunes change. A noble receiving honors one week may disappear from public life the next. A trusted advisor may suddenly lose the king's confidence. These dramatic shifts fascinate visitors while frightening those forced to live through them. Music fills nearly every corner of palace life. Trumpets announce important arrivals. Choirs perform during religious services. Lutes accompany evening conversations. Recorders, viols, harps, and organs provide entertainment throughout the year. Henry himself enjoys composing music, and some pieces attributed to him survive even today. Imagine hearing these melodies echo through vast stone halls while candlelight reflects from stained glass windows, creating an atmosphere both magnificent and strangely intimate. Animals also play an important role in royal life. Falcons perch patiently on gloved hands before soaring into the sky during hunts. Elegant greyhounds race across open fields pursuing deer. White swans glide across palace lakes, protected by royal law. Exotic creatures occasionally arrive as diplomatic gifts, astonishing everyone fortunate enough to see them. Owning unusual animals demonstrates wealth and international connections. As evening approaches once more, the palace slowly changes character. Servants light hundreds of candles one by one, replacing fading daylight with warm golden illumination. Shadows stretch across carved ceilings while great fireplaces roar against the evening chill. Noble families gather for conversation before supper, exchanging stories gathered throughout the day. Somewhere in another wing of the palace, musicians begin tuning instruments. Elsewhere, scribes continue copying official documents long after sunset. For the Queen, however, another day means another careful balancing act successfully completed, or perhaps only postponed. Every decision has required thought. Every conversation has demanded caution. Every public appearance has reinforced the image expected of England's Queen. Beneath magnificent gowns and priceless jewels stands a woman carrying burdens invisible to nearly everyone around her. Imagine a cold autumn morning when thick mist rolls across the palace courtyards, softening the outlines of towers and chimneys until the entire royal residence seems to float above the earth. Before most of England has even begun its daily work, the palace is already alive with activity. Stable hands brush horses until their coats shine. Blacksmiths hammer glowing iron into horseshoes. Laundresses scrub mountains of linen, and cooks prepare meals for hundreds of mouths. Smoke curls upward from dozens of chimneys, carrying the scent of oak fires into the crisp morning air. Looking out from your chamber window, you realize that this enormous machine never stops turning, and every part of it exists to serve one purpose: the king. As his wife, your own life becomes inseparable from this great engine of power. The walls themselves seem to listen. Stone corridors have witnessed generations of whispered promises. secret negotiations, quiet betrayals, and joyful celebrations. Portraits of kings, queens, and noble ancestors stare silently from richly decorated walls, reminding everyone that today's decisions will become tomorrow's history. Walking through these halls can feel strangely intimidating, as though every step carries the weight of those who came before. You begin to understand that becoming queen is not simply receiving a title. It means joining an unbroken chain stretching back centuries, where personal happiness often comes second to royal duty. There are moments when the palace feels less like a home and more like a stage. Every public appearance resembles a carefully choreographed performance. When you enter the Great Hall, conversations pause for a heartbeat before everyone bows. Every movement is observed. Every expression is interpreted. If you appear cheerful, rumours spread that the king's marriage is flourishing. If you seem distracted, whispers begin about illness, pregnancy, or political disagreements. Even silence speaks loudly within the Tudor court. Yon unexpected challenge is the endless waiting. So much of royal life consists of anticipation, waiting for letters from foreign rulers, waiting for physicians to announce whether a pregnancy is progressing safely, waiting for the king to return from hunting, waiting for Parliament to complete its work, waiting for ambassadors to arrive after long journeys across Europe. These periods of uncertainty often last weeks or months, leaving plenty of time for hope to grow alongside fear. When foreign visitors finally arrive, they bring the outside world into the palace. Their clothing reflects distant fashions, their languages fill the air with unfamiliar sounds, and their gifts introduce rare objects from lands many English courtiers will never see. Fine Venetian glass, delicate Flemish tapestries, richly illustrated books, intricate clocks, carved ivory, and exotic spices all serve as reminders that England is only one kingdom within a vast and changing Europe. The Queen is expected to receive these guests with warmth and intelligence, representing not merely herself, but the dignity of the entire nation. Books gradually become trusted companions. In quiet moments, away from endless ceremonies, reading offers an escape into theology, history, poetry, and philosophy. Some queens spend hours translating religious texts or discussing new ideas with scholars. Learning is considered a noble pursuit, yet it must always remain balanced with humility. An educated queen earns admiration, but she must never appear to overshadow the king. Even intelligence requires careful presentation. As evening approaches, the palace transforms beneath hundreds of flickering candles. The fading daylight gives way to warm golden light reflected from polished silver, crystal goblets, and embroidered fabrics. Shadows dance across carved wooden ceilings while musicians softly rehearse for the night's entertainment. From somewhere deep within the kitchens comes the rich aroma of roasted meat, fresh bread, cinnamon, cloves, and honey. For a brief moment, everything feels peaceful, almost timeless. Yet beneath this beauty lies constant awareness. Every noble family has ambitions. Every alliance may shift. Every conversation contains layers of meaning. The Queen learns to recognize subtle signals invisible to outsiders. A nobleman standing unusually close to a foreign ambassador. A trusted servant suddenly avoiding eye contact. A familiar courtier choosing to dine at another table. Small details often reveal larger changes quietly unfolding beneath the surface. The King's Council meets regularly to discuss matters affecting the kingdom wars. taxation, diplomacy, trade, justice, and religion occupy their attention for hours. Although the Queen rarely participates directly in official government meetings, she often hears fragments of discussion afterward. Henry may seek reassurance, share victories, or simply think aloud while walking through palace gardens. At such moments, the Queen's greatest strength is not commanding armies or writing laws, but offering thoughtful counsel when the king is willing to listen. Sometimes the palace echoes with celebration after good news arrives. A successful harvest promises lower food prices. Peace negotiations progress well. A military victory strengthens England's position abroad. Bells ring. Musicians play lively tunes, and the mood of the entire household brightens. Servants laugh more freely. Courtiers speak with renewed confidence, and banquets become longer and more extravagant. These joyful days remind everyone that the kingdom can still prosper, despite its many uncertainties. But difficult news arrives just as often. Plague appears in another city. A trusted noble dies unexpectedly. Religious unrest grows stronger. Foreign rulers form new alliances without England's involvement. Such developments spread anxiety through the court with remarkable speed. Faces grow more serious. Meetings become longer. Guards appear more vigilant. Even the most beautiful palace cannot fully shield its inhabitants from the troubles of the outside world. For the Queen, family relationships become increasingly complicated. Brothers, sisters, parents, and relatives often remain far away, especially if they live in another country. Letters become precious connections to childhood memories and familiar voices. Months may pass before receiving a reply. The loneliness of royal life is rarely shown in paintings, yet it quietly shapes everyday existence. Surrounded by hundreds of people, a queen may still feel profoundly isolated. Children's laughter occasionally breaks this solemn atmosphere. Young princes and princesses play with carved wooden toys, chase one another through carefully supervised gardens, or practice reading under the guidance of tutors. Their innocence offers brief relief from the heavy responsibilities surrounding them. Yet even childhood inside the royal family carries expectations. From birth, every royal child represents the future of the dynasty. Tutors carefully shape their education, while diplomats watch their development with keen interest. Weather influences nearly every aspect of palace life. Fierce winter storms make travel dangerous, trapping the royal household inside great stone buildings for weeks. Spring fills the countryside with blossoms and renews hunting expeditions. Summer heat encourages outdoor feasts and garden festivals, while autumn brings harvest celebrations and preparations for another harsh winter. Without modern comforts, the changing seasons are felt deeply. Cold creeps through thick walls, despite blazing fireplaces, and heavy rains turn roads into exhausting stretches of mud. There are evenings when the Queen stands alone beside a narrow window, after everyone else has retired. Beyond the palace walls, thousands of ordinary people sleep peacefully in cottages scattered across England. Most will never see the royal family except from a distance. They imagine queens living lives of endless comfort and effortless happiness. They see crowns, jewels, magnificent gowns, and glittering ceremonies. They cannot see the private worries hidden beneath those symbols of greatness. Perhaps the greatest lesson learned within Henry VIII's court is that power and security are not the same thing. The Queen occupies the highest position any woman in England can hold, Yet her future often feels less certain than that of the simplest village wife. Wealth cannot guarantee peace of mind. Splendor cannot silence fear. Honor cannot always overcome politics. The closer one stands to the throne, the more fiercely the winds of fortune seem to blow. Years pass almost unnoticed. Faces within the court change as old servants retire. Young nobles arrive. Foreign ambassadors come and go, and trusted companions disappear from familiar places around the banquet table. The palace itself remains magnificent, but memories begin to linger in every chamber. A hallway recalls joyful processions after a royal wedding. A chapel remembers whispered prayers before childbirth. A great hall echoes with celebrations long finished. Every room quietly gathers the stories of those who once walked its floors. When future generations look back on Henry VIII's reign, they remember dramatic marriages, political revolutions, and famous portraits hanging in museums. Yet those grand historical moments were built upon countless ordinary hours lived by real people. Halls filled with conversation, uncertainty, laughter, disappointment, hope, and resilience. To be Henry VIII's wife was to wake each morning wearing the richest clothes in England while carrying invisible burdens that no jewel could lighten. It was to smile before cheering crowds while privately wondering what the next royal decision might bring. Imagine the sound of church bells drifting across the palace just before sunrise, their slow, solemn rhythm echoing over the River Thames and through the mist-covered courtyards. Another day has begun, and with it comes another carefully choreographed performance that will last until long after darkness falls. Before your feet even touch the floor, attendants have already begun preparing your chamber. Fresh candles replace those burned down during the night. A fire is stirred back to life to warm the room. Water is heated in great copper kettles, and servants quietly arrange clothing selected hours earlier according to the day's schedule. Nothing is accidental. Every detail has been planned because the Queen of England is expected to embody order in a world that often feels dangerously unpredictable. Outside your chamber, the palace resembles a living organism. Messengers hurry through passageways, carrying sealed letters, tied with silk ribbons. Pages race between apartments, delivering instructions from senior officials. The rhythmic scraping of brushes can be heard as servants polish armour and furniture until every surface gleams. Somewhere below, blacksmiths strike glowing iron with heavy hammers, while bakers pull fresh loaves from enormous brick ovens. The entire palace moves with astonishing precision, yet almost everyone pauses when the Queen passes, lowering their heads in silent respect. One of the greatest misconceptions about royal life is the idea that a queen spends her days relaxing in luxury. In reality, nearly every hour belongs to someone else. Noblewomen seek audiences to discuss family matters. Bishops request support for religious causes. Foreign ambassadors deliver greetings from distant monarchs. Musicians hope for royal patronage. Artists present sketches for approval. Charitable institutions ask for financial assistance. Even selecting gifts for visiting dignitaries requires careful thought, because every object exchanged carries political meaning. A beautifully crafted jewel may symbolize friendship, while an expensive tapestry can reinforce diplomatic alliances more effectively than long speeches. The Queen's household functions almost like a small kingdom within the larger kingdom. Ladies in waiting oversee daily routines, supervise younger attendants, organize clothing, coordinate ceremonies, and ensure everything proceeds according to royal protocol. Gentlemen ushers regulate who may enter certain rooms. Chamberers maintain private apartments. Clerks record expenses with remarkable detail. Physicians monitor health. Chaplains conduct daily worship. Every individual has a clearly defined role, and together they create an intricate system that allows the monarchy to function smoothly. Yet, despite being surrounded by so many people, genuine friendship remains rare. Every smile raises quiet questions. Does this servant truly care? Or are they secretly loyal to another powerful family? The higher one rises in Henry VIII's court, the harder it becomes to distinguish kindness from strategy. Trust is earned slowly, but can disappear within a single afternoon. The king himself rarely remains still for long, even after age begins to slow his once famous athleticism. Henry enjoys inspecting construction projects, reviewing military preparations, discussing new ships for the navy, or planning magnificent celebrations. He possesses enormous energy when inspired by an idea, expecting everyone around him to match his enthusiasm. If he decides to redesign a palace wing, architects and craftsmen begin work almost immediately. If he announces a grand tournament, preparations consume weeks. Living beside such a forceful personality means adapting constantly to changing priorities. The royal kitchens deserve admiration equal to that given the finest cathedrals. Dozens of roaring fireplaces fill the enormous rooms with intense heat throughout the year. Teams of cooks specialize in roasting, baking, pastry making, sauces, preserves, and confectionery. Boys turn massive spits for hours to ensure meat cooks evenly over open flames. Barrels filled with flour, salted fish, ale, wine, spices, and dried fruit line the storerooms from floor to ceiling. During major feasts, hundreds of dishes leave the kitchens in carefully timed waves, each arriving at the great hall while still warm. Watching this operation unfold is like witnessing a perfectly rehearsed performance involving hundreds of skilled hands. At times, the Queen escapes to the royal library, one of the quietest places within the palace. Shelves filled with beautifully bound manuscripts and printed books create a peaceful refuge from endless ceremony. Here, surrounded by the scent of leather bindings and parchment, time seems to slow. Sunlight filters through narrow windows, illuminating pages decorated with colourful illustrations and delicate gold leaf. Reading offers not only education but also temporary freedom from the constant scrutiny of court life. The gardens change dramatically with each passing season. Spring bursts into colour as thousands of flowers bloom almost overnight. Bees hum among fragrant herbs while gardeners carefully trim hedges into elegant patterns. During summer, fountains sparkle beneath bright sunlight, and fruit trees bend beneath the weight of ripe apples, pears, and cherries. Autumn transforms the landscape into brilliant shades of gold, amber, and crimson, before winter finally strips the branches bare, leaving only frost-covered pathways and silent statues dusted with snow. Through every season, the gardens remain one of the few places where the Queen can briefly imagine an ordinary life beyond palace walls. Ordinary people occasionally catch glimpses of the royal family during public ceremonies. They kneel respectfully as the King and Queen ride past on magnificent horses covered in embroidered cloth. Children wave excitedly while older villagers remove their caps in respect. To these spectators, the Queen appears almost mythical, dressed in shimmering fabrics and sparkling jewels, unlike anything they have ever seen. Few realize that beneath those luxurious garments stands a woman carrying worries remarkably similar to their own: fear for loved ones, hope for the future, uncertainty about tomorrow. When storms sweep across England, palace life changes immediately. Fierce winds rattle windows, rain drums heavily upon rooftops, and lightning briefly illuminates dark corridors through stained glass windows. Fires burn constantly to combat the damp cold creeping through thick stone walls. During such evenings, courtiers gather around great fireplaces, sharing stories while musicians perform gentle melodies. The crackling flames create a comforting atmosphere, yet the weather outside reminds everyone how vulnerable even the greatest palaces remain against the power of nature. The Queen gradually learns that patience is one of the most valuable royal virtues. Important decisions often require weeks of discussion. Diplomatic negotiations stretch across months. Building projects continue for years. Royal marriages are arranged through endless correspondence between distant courts. Nothing significant happens quickly. Waiting becomes an essential part of life, demanding emotional strength equal to any public ceremony. Sometimes the palace welcomes extraordinary visitors whose arrival excites the entire household. Skilled falconers demonstrate remarkable birds trained to hunt with astonishing precision. Italian musicians introduce unfamiliar melodies. Master craftsmen display ingenious mechanical clocks unlike anything previously seen in England. Scholars bring newly printed books containing ideas spreading rapidly across Renaissance Europe. Every visitor reminds the Queen that the world beyond England's shores is growing larger, richer, and more interconnected with every passing year. As evening settles once again over the palace, the sky gradually fades from brilliant gold to deep violet. Torches are lit along stone walls, their flames flickering gently in the cool night air. Guards begin their evening patrols while servants quietly prepare bedchambers for another night. The noise of the busy day slowly fades until only distant footsteps and the occasional crackling fireplace disturb the silence. The Queen removes the heavy crown, jeweled necklaces, embroidered sleeves, and richly decorated gowns that have symbolized royal authority throughout the day. For a few brief moments before sleep, she becomes simply a woman reflecting upon another day successfully completed. She thinks about conversations that went well, words she wishes she had chosen differently, letters still awaiting replies, and hopes that tomorrow will bring good news rather than fresh uncertainty. Perhaps that is the greatest contrast between appearance and reality. History remembers magnificent portraits showing queens dressed in breathtaking splendor, standing confidently beneath glittering crowns with serene expressions upon their faces. Those paintings suggest certainty, strength, and perfect composure. They cannot reveal the countless restless nights spent wondering whether the king's affection remained secure, whether England would enjoy peace or face conflict, whether another pregnancy would succeed, or whether trusted companions would still be loyal when the sun rose again. To live as Henry VIII's wife was to exist in a world where every day balanced dazzling privilege against profound uncertainty. The palaces were magnificent, the ceremonies unforgettable, the jewels beyond imagination, and the influence immense. Yet beneath all that splendor was a life demanding extraordinary courage, endless patience, and remarkable resilience. Every morning required stepping once more into the brilliant spotlight of the Tudor court. As the years pass, you begin to understand something few outsiders ever could. A royal palace is not built merely from stone, timber, and glass. It is built from expectations. Every corridor carries them. Every doorway reminds you of them. Every ceremonial bow, every carefully chosen word, every piece of embroidered silk serves as another thread holding together the enormous tapestry of the Tudor monarchy. The crown resting upon your head belongs not to you alone, but to the entire kingdom. And every decision you make is judged not simply as a woman's choice, but as England's choice. The sound of footsteps becomes strangely familiar. You can often recognize who is approaching long before seeing them. A confident stride might belong to a senior advisor. The quicker pace belongs to an anxious messenger carrying fresh news from London. Soft footsteps often signal one of your ladies in waiting arriving with letters or a change of clothing. Over time, the palace develops its own language without words. Doors opening unexpectedly, hurried conversations ending as you approach, servants exchanging brief glances. Each tiny detail tells a story if you learn to notice it. Henry enjoys magnificence, unlike almost any other European ruler. He believes a powerful king should look powerful in every possible way. His banquets become larger than those of neighbouring kingdoms. His ships grow bigger. His palaces expand continuously. New buildings rise with astonishing speed as architects compete to satisfy royal ambition. Hampton Court, Whitehall, Greenwich, Windsor. Each residence displays another chapter of England's growing confidence. Living beside such grandeur is inspiring, but it also demands endless maintenance. Roofs require repair, gardens need tending, fountains must remain flowing, tapestries require cleaning, and hundreds of fireplaces consume mountains of firewood every winter. Royal ceremonies unfold with remarkable precision. Even something as simple as receiving an important guest follows traditions refined over generations. Trumpets announce arrivals. Officials line the corridors according to rank. Noblemen wear ceremonial robes. Guards stand perfectly still in polished armor reflecting candlelight. Every participant knows exactly where to stand and when to move. One misplaced step may seem insignificant, yet within the Tudor court protocol represents stability itself. The careful order of ceremony reassures everyone that the kingdom remains strong. Sometimes foreign ambassadors arrive carrying unusual gifts meant to impress the king and queen. Beautiful Arabian horses, embroidered Persian carpets, carved ivory from Africa, delicate porcelain from distant lands, jeweled daggers, mechanical clocks with moving figures, and rare books decorated with brilliant illustrations, all find places within the royal collections. These objects are admired not only for their beauty, but because they represent friendships stretching far beyond England's shores. Every gift silently says, "Our kingdom values yours." The Queen quickly discovers that festivals never happen by accident. Weeks before a grand celebration, preparations begin throughout the palace. Seamstresses work by candlelight, stitching new gowns. Carpenters construct temporary stages. Florists decorate halls with greenery and flowers. Bakers produce thousands of pastries, while musicians rehearse endlessly. Entire villages may contribute supplies for a single magnificent feast lasting only one evening. Behind every effortless celebration stand hundreds of workers whose names history rarely remembers. Life inside the palace is filled with fascinating contradictions. The richest fabrics in Europe hang beside cold stone walls. Priceless jewels glitter beneath smoky candlelight. The finest scholars debate theology, while servants quietly sweep rushes from the floor. Noblewomen wear gowns worth fortunes, yet complain about chilly draughts creeping beneath heavy doors. Luxury and discomfort exist side by side every single day. Medical knowledge remains one of the greatest uncertainties of the age. Physicians confidently recommend treatments that sometimes help but often fail to understand the true causes of illness. Herbal mixtures, poultices, carefully prepared diets, scented oils, and bloodletting all form part of accepted medical practice. Even the wealthiest queen cannot purchase guaranteed health. A fever may disappear after several days or become fatal with terrifying speed. Every cough attracts concern, every pregnancy carries silent anxiety. Every winter raises fears that illness may spread through crowded households. Letters become treasures. The arrival of familiar handwriting can transform an ordinary afternoon into one filled with emotion. Family members separated by politics or distance share news of births, deaths, harvests, marriages, and changing fortunes. Because travel remains slow, each letter offers a glimpse into a world that may already have changed again before the message arrives. Some are read repeatedly until the edges of the parchment begin to soften with age. Music continues to shape palace life from morning until night. Gentle melodies accompany quiet dinners. Triumphant fanfares greet military victories. Sacred hymns fill the chapel with solemn beauty. Dancing tunes encourage laughter during festivals. The Queen gradually associates certain songs with particular memories. One melody recalls a joyful wedding celebration. Another brings back thoughts of a lost child. Another reminds her of peaceful evenings before political troubles began. Music becomes the soundtrack of memory itself. The changing light throughout the day transforms the palace into entirely different worlds. Early morning fills eastern chambers with pale golden sunlight. By midday, bright beams illuminate stained glass windows, scattering vibrant colours across polished floors. Evening replaces daylight with hundreds of candles, creating warm pools of flickering light separated by mysterious shadows. Walking through the palace after sunset feels almost magical, as if the building itself has quietly changed character, while everyone was busy attending to their duties. The royal wardrobe grows so extensive that many garments are worn only a handful of times. Fashion changes constantly among Europe's courts, and the Queen is expected to reflect the latest styles while still honouring English traditions. Tailors adjust sleeves, collars, and bodices. According to changing tastes, embroiderers spend months creating intricate floral patterns stitched with gold and silver thread. Jewelers reset precious stones into new designs whenever older fashions begin to fade. Looking magnificent requires an astonishing amount of invisible labour performed by skilled craftsmen. Not every day is filled with ceremonies or dramatic political decisions. Many afternoons pass quietly. The Queen may supervise embroidery projects intended as diplomatic gifts, practice music with her ladies, read devotional writings, walk through the gardens, or simply sit beside a window watching clouds drift slowly across the English sky. These peaceful moments are precious because they are unpredictable. At any instant, a messenger may arrive carrying news capable of changing the course of the entire kingdom. Children remain a source of both hope and heartbreak throughout the Tudor court. Every cradle represents the future of the dynasty. Every birthday becomes a public celebration. Yet childhood illnesses are common, and medicine offers few reliable cures. Mothers live with constant concern, offering prayers as often as physicians offer treatments. The joy of watching a healthy child laugh in the palace gardens becomes all the more meaningful because everyone understands how fragile life can be. Henry himself changes with time. The young prince, admired across Europe for his athletic strength, gradually becomes a ruler shaped by years of responsibility, disappointment, injury, and political struggle. His confidence never entirely disappears, but it becomes mixed with caution, suspicion, and moments of visible weariness. The Queen witnesses these changes more closely than anyone else. She sees not only the monarch commanding Parliament or greeting ambassadors, but also the aging man quietly reflecting beside the fire after an exhausting day. As winter evenings grow longer, stories become an important form of entertainment. Travellers describe strange lands beyond the seas. Sailors speak of dangerous storms and distant ports. Elderly nobles remember battles fought decades earlier. Priests recount the lives of saints. These tales pass the hours while snow settles silently beyond the palace walls. Listening beside a roaring fire, wrapped in heavy velvet against the cold, the Queen briefly escapes the endless responsibilities awaiting her tomorrow. Eventually, you come to realize that history rarely remembers ordinary happiness. Chroniclers record wars, marriages, treaties, executions, and coronations. But they seldom mention quiet breakfasts shared in comfortable conversation, peaceful walks among blooming roses, laughter during an evening of music, or the satisfaction of watching sunlight warm the palace gardens after weeks of rain. Yet these small moments are often what make life worth living. They become treasured memories carried silently through years of uncertainty. When future generations think of Henry VIII's wives, they often imagine only dramatic endings and famous portraits. They picture crowns, castles, and extraordinary events. What they cannot easily imagine is the rhythm of everyday existence. The endless ceremonies, the quiet hours of waiting, the careful conversations, the constant balancing of hope against fear, and the remarkable resilience required simply to wake each morning and begin again. Imagine that after years at court, you no longer need anyone to explain how the palace works, because you can sense its mood the moment you step into the hallway. There are mornings when laughter drifts from distant chambers, servants greet one another cheerfully, and the air feels almost light. On those days, the king is probably pleased with recent events. Perhaps a hunting trip was successful, an ambassador brought encouraging news, or construction on one of his palaces is progressing well. Everyone seems to breathe more easily, but there are other mornings when conversations are barely above a whisper. Doors close softly instead of slamming. Faces remain serious, and even the palace dogs seem unusually quiet. No official announcement is needed. Everyone understands that something has gone wrong, and until the king's temper settles, the safest course is caution. The royal apartments become more familiar than any childhood home. You know exactly where sunlight falls across the floor during different seasons. You recognize the creak of certain wooden stairs and the chill that lingers near particular windows in winter. You know which fireplaces burn hottest, which gardens bloom first in spring, and which corridors remain cool even during the height of summer. These details become comforting because they are among the few things that remain constant, while everything else changes around you. The palace is filled with beautiful objects collected over decades. Rich Flemish tapestries depict biblical stories, hunting scenes, and ancient legends. They hang from cold stone walls, not only to display wealth, but also to provide insulation against winter's biting cold. Massive oak furniture carved with intricate designs fills the chambers. Tables are polished until they shine in the candlelight, while silver plates, golden goblets, and crystal vessels reflect dancing flames during evening meals. Every room speaks of extraordinary wealth, yet the people living among these treasures still experience ordinary worries. The Queen's day is often interrupted by requests for mercy. Families hope she will persuade the king to forgive debts, reduce punishments, or grant favours. Prisoners' relatives kneel before her, tears filling their eyes as they beg for intervention. Widows seek financial assistance. Veterans ask for pensions after years of military service. Monasteries appeal for protection. Merchants request royal permission to expand their businesses. The Queen cannot solve every problem, but she understands that compassion strengthens the bond between the monarchy and its people. Sometimes a gentle word spoken privately to Henry achieves what formal petitions never could. As the years pass, you also witness England itself changing. New ideas arrive from the continent with merchants and scholars. Printing presses produce books faster than ever before, allowing knowledge to spread beyond monasteries and universities. Maps become more detailed as explorers return with astonishing stories about distant lands across the oceans. Conversations increasingly include discussions about navigation, astronomy, trade, and discoveries that would have seemed impossible only a generation earlier. Living at the center of royal power means watching history unfold almost day by day. The king loves magnificent displays of strength. Tournaments continue to attract enormous crowds despite the dangers involved. Knights ride into specially prepared arenas wearing polished armor decorated with colorful ribbons and family crests. Lances shatter dramatically upon impact while spectators cheer from covered viewing platforms. Trumpets echo across the fields as banners flutter in the breeze. The Queen watches these contests with mixed emotions. They are thrilling spectacles, yet she knows too well how quickly glory can become tragedy. Henry himself once suffered a devastating accident during a tournament, an injury that changed the course of his health forever. Life within the palace follows countless traditions that seem strange to modern eyes. Before important meals, servants carefully taste food to reduce the risk of poisoning. Royal clothing is inventoried with astonishing precision. Every jewel is recorded, every piece of silver counted, every expensive fabric carefully stored after use. Nothing belonging to the crown is treated casually because these treasures symbolize royal authority itself. Even entertainment reflects social hierarchy. During banquets, guests sit according to rank. The closer one sits to the king and queen, the greater one's prestige. Conversations at the highest table influence political decisions, while those farther away listen carefully, hoping to catch fragments of important discussions. Seating arrangements alone can spark endless speculation among courtiers. A noble unexpectedly placed closer to the king may suddenly become the focus of everyone's attention. the palace chapel remains one of the few places where status briefly fades before faith. Noblemen kneel beside servants. Wealthy ladies bow their heads alongside ordinary attendants. The flickering candles illuminate every face equally. In these moments, the Queen is reminded that even kings and queens must answer to something greater than themselves. These quiet services provide rare opportunities for reflection away from the constant noise of politics. As Henry grows older, memories begin to fill the palace as much as people do. Every hallway recalls an important procession. Every chamber reminds someone of a celebration, a birth, a difficult conversation, or a farewell. Older servants tell stories about how the king looked in his youth. Tall, athletic, endlessly energetic, dancing effortlessly for hours and astonishing foreign visitors with his strength. Younger members of the court listen with fascination because the powerful monarch they know now carries the visible marks of age, injury, and responsibility. The Queen gradually learns another truth rarely mentioned in history books. Loneliness can exist even in the busiest place imaginable. From dawn until midnight, she is surrounded by ladies, advisors, servants, guards, musicians, ambassadors, and noble families. Yet very few people speak to her without considering her position first. Genuine conversations become precious because so many interactions are shaped by ceremony, ambition, or political necessity. Sometimes she misses the simplest pleasures of ordinary life, walking through a village unnoticed, preparing a meal with family members, visiting friends without announcing her arrival weeks in advance, sitting beside a quiet river without an escort. These small freedoms disappear almost completely after becoming queen. Every journey requires planning. Every appearance becomes public. Even moments intended for relaxation quickly attract attention from those hoping to gain influence. Nature provides occasional reminders that the world exists beyond politics. Swallows return each spring, building nests beneath palace roofs exactly as they have for generations. Deer graze peacefully in royal parks, unaware of human ambitions. Rivers continue flowing past ancient castles, regardless of wars or royal marriages, watching snowfall settle gently across silent gardens. The Queen sometimes finds comfort in realizing that seasons continue their endless cycle, no matter what troubles occupy the court. Nightfall brings a different kind of beauty. The palace glows beneath hundreds of candles, visible through leaded windows. From a distance, it resembles a constellation resting upon the earth. Guards carrying lanterns patrol the walls, while the distant calls of owls echo through nearby forests. Inside, the final conversations of the day slowly fade, fires burn lower, musicians retire, doors close one by one, until only the occasional footsteps of the night watch disturb the silence. Before sleeping, the Queen often reflects upon the day's events. Which conversations mattered most? Which promises must be remembered tomorrow? Which letters require replies? Did the king appear content? Were the ambassadors satisfied? Has England moved one step closer to peace, or one step nearer to conflict? These thoughts accompany her long after the candles have been extinguished. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of being Henry VIII's wife is learning to live with uncertainty without allowing it to destroy hope. Every queen enters the marriage believing she can build a lasting future. She imagines years filled with shared victories, healthy children, peaceful evenings, and growing affection. reality proves far more complicated. Love must compete with politics. Personal happiness is constantly measured against national interest. Every success is celebrated publicly, while every disappointment unfolds beneath the watchful eyes of an entire kingdom. Centuries later, visitors walking through Hampton Court Palace or Windsor Castle admire magnificent architecture, priceless paintings, glittering armour, and richly furnished rooms. They pause before portraits of Henry's wives, studying faces frozen in paint nearly 500 years ago. Those portraits appear calm, confident, and regal. Yet behind every carefully painted expression lies a lifetime of emotions impossible to capture with a brush. Moments of excitement before a royal wedding, sleepless nights during dangerous pregnancies, quiet laughter shared with trusted companions, silent prayers whispered in candlelit chapels, heartbreaking disappointments, cautious optimism, and the constant determination to endure another day in one of history's most extraordinary courts. To truly understand what it was like to be Henry VIII's wife, you must look beyond the famous crowns and dramatic endings. You must imagine the thousands of ordinary mornings when the Queen awoke before dawn, dressed in magnificent clothing, stepped into echoing corridors filled with expectation. Now imagine that many years have passed since you first entered the royal court. The excitement that once accompanied every ceremony has slowly given way to experience. You no longer marvel at the sight of gold-covered ceilings or endless tables filled with silver plate, because they have become part of everyday life. Instead, you notice smaller things that newcomers rarely see. You notice the nervous expression on a young page carrying his first message to the king. You notice an elderly servant carefully polishing a window frame he has cared for decades. You notice gardeners rising before sunrise, so the roses are in perfect bloom before the royal family walks outside. These quiet moments reveal that behind every display of royal magnificence stand countless ordinary people whose hard work keeps the kingdom's greatest household alive. The palace itself seems to possess a memory. Certain staircases have carried generations of monarchs. The stone beneath your feet has been worn smooth by thousands of footsteps over hundreds of years. Massive oak doors open and close with the same deep sound they made long before Henry was born. Every fireplace has warmed countless winters, and every great hall has echoed with celebrations, mourning, political debates, and royal announcements. Walking through these rooms often feels like walking through history itself, where every wall silently remembers events no living person can fully recall. The Queen gradually becomes skilled at reading faces. Before anyone speaks, she often knows whether the news will be good or bad. A messenger carrying joyful tidings usually walks quickly, almost proudly. Someone bringing unpleasant news hesitates slightly before entering the chamber. Ambassadors smile politely, yet their eyes often reveal whether negotiations are progressing well. Even Henry's closest advisors become easier to understand with time. Their confidence, uncertainty, relief, or concern appears long before words leave their mouths. There are days when the king wishes to escape politics entirely. On such mornings, he rides into the countryside, accompanied by only a select group of trusted companions. Hunting horns echo across forests as falcons soar high above the trees. The Queen sometimes joins these excursions, not merely to enjoy nature, but to witness another side of Henry's personality. Away from crowded halls and official ceremonies, he occasionally laughs more freely, tells stories from his youth, and remembers simpler days before the burden of ruling an entire kingdom rested upon his shoulders. These rare moments remind everyone that beneath the crown lives an ordinary human being with hopes, disappointments, and memories. The palace workshops are places few visitors ever see, yet they are among the busiest corners of the royal household. Tailors carefully stitch new ceremonial robes by hand, sometimes spending months completing a single garment. Goldsmiths repair damaged jewelry or create elaborate new pieces worthy of a queen. Carpenters carve furniture decorated with intricate Tudor roses, while painters restore fading artwork or prepare fresh portraits destined for foreign courts. Every craftsman understands that perfection is expected because their work represents the dignity of England itself. As Queen, you also become the patron of many talented people. Young musicians hope to perform before you. Writers dedicate books to your name. Scholars seek your encouragement for new translations. Embroiderers present extraordinary works requiring thousands of tiny stitches completed over many months. Supporting these artists brings genuine satisfaction because it allows beauty and learning to flourish within the kingdom. Long after political disputes are forgotten, music, literature, and art continue to inspire future generations. Occasionally, children from noble families visit the palace to begin their education at court. Their excitement is impossible to hide. They stare in amazement at towering ceilings, glittering chandeliers, colourful tapestries, and guards dressed in shining armour. Everything appears magical through their eyes. Watching them reminds the Queen of her own first days at court, when every room seemed impossibly grand and every ceremony felt like stepping into a storybook. Time has replaced that wonder with wisdom, yet she smiles quietly, remembering how unfamiliar this extraordinary world once seemed. The royal kitchens continue their endless rhythm regardless of celebrations or sorrow. Before dawn, ovens are already glowing. Bakers knead dough with practiced hands while cooks prepare soups, pies, roasted meats, and delicate pastries. Fresh herbs arrive daily from palace gardens. Fish is delivered packed in cool wet cloths, while wagons carrying grain, fruit, cheese, butter, and barrels of ale pass through the gates almost continuously. Feeding hundreds of people every day requires remarkable organisation, and yet meals appear before the royal family with effortless precision, as though by magic winter evenings become especially memorable. Thick snow settles across palace rooftops, muffling the usual sounds of busy courtyards. The world outside seems to slow down completely. Inside, enormous fireplaces glow warmly, while servants place extra candles throughout the chambers to brighten the long nights. Musicians perform gentle melodies. Storytellers recount legends of ancient kings and saints, and ladies quietly work on embroidery beside the fire. These peaceful evenings offer a welcome contrast to the constant movement of political life, allowing everyone to rest, if only for a little while. Despite all this grandeur, fear never disappears entirely. Every queen understands that fortunes at court can change unexpectedly. A trusted advisor may lose influence overnight. A powerful noble family may suddenly fall from favour. A foreign alliance carefully built over years can collapse after one disagreement. Stability always feels temporary. This awareness encourages caution in every conversation and humility, even during moments of great success. The Queen also witnesses countless acts of kindness rarely mentioned by historians. Servants secretly helping one another during illness. Ladies comforting frightened children before important ceremonies. Physicians remaining awake through the night beside sick patients. Gardeners leaving the season's first roses outside the Queen's chamber, simply because they know she enjoys them. These quiet gestures reveal a deeply human side of palace life, hidden behind formal etiquette and royal protocol. As Henry's reign continues, England itself grows stronger in many ways. New ships expand trade across distant seas. Skilled craftsmen produce increasingly beautiful works. Universities attract brilliant scholars, eager to explore new ideas. London grows busier every year as merchants from many countries fill its streets with unfamiliar languages and exotic goods. Standing at the centre of this changing world, the Queen realizes she is witnessing the beginning of a new era that future generations will study with fascination. Some evenings after official duties have ended, the Queen climbs to a high gallery overlooking the palace grounds. From there she watches the last light of sunset spread across gardens, towers, rivers and forests, stretching toward the horizon. Smoke rises gently from village cottages beyond the royal estate, reminding her that ordinary families are ending their own day much as they have for generations. Children are being tucked into bed. Farmers are finishing their evening meals. Church bells ring softly in the distance. Life beyond the palace continues regardless of royal celebrations or political struggles. Those quiet sunsets often bring unexpected clarity. The jewels locked safely inside royal chests, the magnificent banquets, the embroidered gowns, the towering palaces, and the elaborate ceremonies are all extraordinary, yet they are not what truly define a queen's life. What defines her are the decisions made when no one is watching. The patience shown during uncertainty, the compassion offered to those seeking help, the courage displayed during personal heartbreak, and the determination to fulfill her responsibilities even when the future seems uncertain. Generations later, people still debate Henry VIII, his marriages, his politics, and the dramatic events that transformed England forever. Yet behind every famous chapter of history stood countless ordinary days filled with routine, conversation, quiet hope, simple pleasures, and private fears. Those days rarely appear in history books, but together they formed the true experience of being Henry VIII's wife. It was a life lived beneath glittering crowns, but guided by constant responsibility. A life surrounded by unimaginable wealth, yet shadowed by uncertainty. A life filled with music, gardens, learning, celebration, and breathtaking beauty, yet also marked by sacrifice, resilience, and quiet endurance. Every sunrise offered another opportunity to serve the kingdom with dignity, and every evening closed with gratitude for having successfully navigated another day inside one of the most fascinating, demanding, and unforgettable royal courts the world has ever known. Imagine reaching a point where the passing of time is no longer measured by calendars, but by the changing faces around you. Young pages who once nervously carried messages have grown into confident gentlemen of the court. Children who played in the palace gardens now attend royal councils or prepare for marriages arranged to strengthen powerful alliances. Even the oldest oak trees lining the avenues seem larger and wiser than when you first arrived. Life at court never truly stands still. People come, people leave, fortunes rise, fortunes collapse. Yet the palace itself continues almost unchanged, quietly watching another generation write its story. By now, you know every sound the palace makes, the deep ringing of the chapel bell before dawn, the sharp blast of hunting horns echoing across the park, the steady rhythm of horses' hooves entering the main courtyard, the distant laughter drifting from the great hall during festivals. Even the gentle flutter of pigeons settling on ancient rooftops becomes part of everyday life. These familiar sounds create a rhythm that feels almost comforting, reminding you that even in uncertain times, some things remain beautifully constant. The Royal Library grows larger every year. Shelves once filled with only a few treasured manuscripts now contain hundreds of carefully bound volumes. Scholars from across Europe send books as gifts, hoping their work will find favour in England's most influential court. Maps become increasingly detailed, revealing coastlines that earlier generations could scarcely imagine. Scientific observations, classical philosophy, poetry, medicine, architecture, and theology all compete for attention. During quiet afternoons, the Queen sometimes loses herself among these pages, discovering ideas carried across mountains and seas by generations of thinkers. Reading becomes a journey without leaving the palace walls. Meanwhile, artists continue capturing the faces of those who shape the kingdom. Portrait sessions require remarkable patience. Remaining perfectly still for long periods is more tiring than many expect, yet every detail matters. The painter carefully observes the way light reflects from pearls, the texture of velvet sleeves, the sparkle of gemstones, and the subtle expression in the Queen's eyes. These portraits are intended not merely to resemble a person, but to communicate dignity, intelligence, confidence, and stability. Long after those who posed for them are gone, the paintings will continue speaking on their behalf. The palace chapel remains a sanctuary, unlike any other place within the royal household. Early each morning, sunlight streams through stained glass windows, painting the stone floor with rich shades of crimson, sapphire, emerald, and gold. Choir voices rise gently beneath vaulted ceilings, filling the space with music that seems almost timeless. Here, political disagreements briefly disappear beneath shared prayers. Whether seeking guidance before an important decision, or simply finding peace after an exhausting day, the Queen often discovers that silence itself can be a powerful companion. Royal banquets continue to astonish foreign visitors. Entire halls shimmer beneath hundreds of candles, reflected in polished silver and crystal goblets. Long tables overflow with roasted venison, pheasants, swans, fresh bread, fragrant herbs, colourful fruits, and elaborate desserts sculpted into castles, ships, and mythical creatures. Musicians perform from raised galleries, while servants move with remarkable coordination, ensuring every guest receives exactly what is required at precisely the right moment. To outsiders, these feasts represent unimaginable luxury. To those living within the palace, they are also carefully planned demonstrations of England's wealth, organisation, and confidence. The Queen gradually realises that generosity is one of the most enduring forms of influence. Every winter, food and clothing are distributed to struggling families. Hospitals receive financial support. Churches are repaired. Promising students receive scholarships. Widows and orphans are quietly assisted through royal charity. These acts rarely attract public celebration. yet they strengthen the bond between the monarchy and the people far more deeply than grand ceremonies ever could. True leadership often reveals itself not during moments of triumph, but through quiet compassion shown when no applause follows. Outside the palace, England itself is changing before everyone's eyes. New houses appear in growing towns. Merchants return from distant voyages, carrying unfamiliar goods such as fine fabrics, rare spices, and curious objects from lands few Englishmen have ever seen. Shipbuilders improve their designs, allowing vessels to travel farther than previous generations believed possible. Conversations increasingly include stories of exploration, discovery, and opportunity. Standing at the center of the kingdom, the Queen senses that England is slowly becoming part of a much larger world. Nature continues its endless cycle, reminding everyone how small human ambitions can seem beside the passage of time. Every spring, fresh leaves cover trees that stood long before Henry became king. Swans glide gracefully across palace lakes exactly as they always have. The scent of roses returns faithfully each summer, filling the gardens with familiar sweetness. Autumn scatters golden leaves across stone pathways, while winter wraps towers and rooftops beneath silent blankets of frost. These repeating seasons provide comfort because they continue regardless of political uncertainty. Occasionally, the Queen watches ordinary craftsmen at work simply out of curiosity. A mason patiently shapes rough stone into elegant arches. A carpenter transforms plain timber into beautifully carved furniture. A weaver creates intricate patterns thread by thread, often taking weeks to complete a single tapestry. Their dedication reminds her that greatness is rarely achieved through sudden moments of brilliance alone. More often, it is built through steady effort repeated day after day, much like the responsibilities of queenship itself. The palace also becomes a place of memories. Certain windows remind you of conversations that changed lives. Particular gardens recall joyful celebrations now many years past. One staircase brings back thoughts of a wedding procession. Another corridor recalls anxious hours spent awaiting important news. Every familiar place gathers layers of memory, until simply walking through the palace becomes a journey through your own past. As evening settles once again, the sky gradually darkens above the palace towers. Torches are lit along gateways, casting warm pools of light across ancient stone walls. The final rays of sunlight disappear beyond distant forests, while the first stars emerge overhead. Somewhere in the kitchens, tomorrow's bread is already being prepared. Guards quietly exchange shifts. Stable boys ensure every horse is fed before nightfall. Even while the royal family sleeps, the palace continues breathing softly through the work of those who keep it alive. Before retiring, the Queen often pauses beside an open window overlooking the moonlit gardens. The cool night air carries the distant fragrance of flowers, mixed with the faint scent of wood smoke rising from nearby villages. Beyond the palace walls, countless families end their own day, unaware of the private thoughts occupying the mind of their queen. They see only the public image presented during ceremonies, the magnificent gowns, glittering jewels, confident smile, and graceful dignity. They cannot see the quiet reflections that come when the crowds have disappeared and the palace has finally grown still. Perhaps she thinks about how quickly life changes. The nervous young bride who first entered the Tudor court has become a woman shaped by experience. She has witnessed celebrations that united the kingdom, moments of sorrow that tested every ounce of her strength, peaceful afternoons filled with laughter, and sleepless nights burdened by uncertainty. She has learned that courage is not always found on battlefields. Sometimes courage means simply facing another day with kindness, patience, and quiet determination. Despite never knowing what tomorrow may bring, history remembers kings through battles, laws, and monuments. Queens are often remembered through marriages, portraits, and family connections. Yet the true measure of a queen's life lies elsewhere. It lies in thousands of unseen moments, comforting a frightened child, encouraging a discouraged servant, listening carefully before speaking, remaining composed during crisis, offering hope when others despair, and preserving dignity, even when circumstances threaten to take everything else away. King Henry VIII's wife was to stand at the very heart of Tudor England during one of the most dramatic periods in its history. It meant witnessing the rise of magnificent palaces, the transformation of religion, the expansion of learning, the flourishing of Renaissance culture, and the shaping of a kingdom whose influence would echo across centuries. But above all, it meant living each day with remarkable resilience. Beneath every jeweled crown beat the heart of a woman who laughed, worried, hoped, grieved, celebrated, and persevered just as any other person would. Only beneath the watchful eyes of an entire nation. That quiet humanity, hidden beneath layers of velvet, gold, and ceremony, is perhaps the most fascinating part of all. As the years unfold, one lesson becomes impossible to ignore. The palace is always watching. Not because the walls possess magic, but because hundreds of lives intersect within them every single day. A maid notices who enters a chamber. A guard remembers who leaves after sunset. A steward observes who receives invitations to dine with the king. A musician quietly overhears conversations while performing in the background. None of these people may intend to shape history, yet together they create an invisible network through which news travels with astonishing speed. By the time breakfast is finished, a conversation whispered in confidence the previous evening may already be known throughout the court. The Queen quickly learns to appreciate the rare gift of routine. Every morning begins with familiar rituals, prayers before the day truly starts, letters carefully opened with a small knife, reports from household officials explaining which guests have arrived, what supplies have been delivered, and which ceremonies require attention. Familiar routines create a sense of order in a life where larger events often remain beyond anyone's control. From the windows of the palace, England reveals itself in subtle ways. Farmers guide ploughs across nearby fields while smoke curls gently from the chimneys of small villages. Barges drift along the Thames carrying timber, grain, cloth, and barrels of wine toward London. Church bells ring across the countryside, their echoes reaching even the royal apartments on calm mornings. Watching ordinary life continue beyond the palace walls reminds the Queen that every decision made within these grand chambers eventually reaches people who will never wear velvet or sit beneath golden ceilings. There are days when artists arrive carrying unfinished works to present for approval. One unveils a richly woven tapestry depicting scenes from classical mythology. Another displays an illuminated manuscript whose pages shimmer with delicate gold leaf. A sculptor reveals finely carved marble brought from distant quarries. Henry delights in surrounding himself with beauty, believing that magnificent art reflects the greatness of his kingdom. The Queen shares this appreciation, often spending long moments admiring the patience and extraordinary skill required to transform ordinary materials into lasting masterpieces. The royal wardrobe is constantly evolving. Fabrics imported from Italy, France, and the Low Countries arrive packed carefully inside wooden chests lined with fragrant herbs. Tailors discuss new styles spreading through European courts. Sleeves become wider one season, collars more elaborate the next. Embroidery grows increasingly intricate as skilled craftsmen compete to create patterns unlike any seen before. Dressing for an important ceremony becomes an event requiring dozens of experienced hands. Every ribbon is adjusted perfectly. Every jewel catches the light exactly as intended. Every fold of fabric is arranged to project effortless elegance, even though achieving that appearance has taken hours. Despite all this luxury, simple pleasures often bring the greatest happiness, walking through dew-covered gardens before anyone else has awakened, listening to birds singing from ancient oak trees, watching swans glide silently across still water, reading beside a window while gentle rain taps against the glass, sharing quiet conversation with a trusted companion free from political concerns. These moments rarely appear in official records, yet they become the memories treasured most deeply. As queen, you gradually become familiar with every season of palace life. Spring arrives with hopeful energy. New flowers bloom, fresh greenery decorates the halls, and the air carries the scent of damp earth awakening after winter. Summer fills the courtyards with warmth and activity as tournaments, outdoor feasts, and hunting expeditions become more frequent. Autumn transforms the countryside into brilliant shades of amber and crimson, while harvest wagons arrive carrying the year's abundance. Winter slows everything slightly. Thick cloaks replace lighter clothing. Enormous fires burn throughout the day, and evenings gather everyone together beneath candlelight. Visitors from distant kingdoms often leave astonished by the scale of Henry's court. They expect wealth, but few anticipate the extraordinary organization behind it. Hundreds of servants perform specialized duties with remarkable precision. Some care only for candles, ensuring every chamber remains illuminated. Others maintain clocks, fountains, kitchens, libraries, gardens, wardrobes, or royal stables. Entire teams work unseen beneath the grandeur, allowing ceremonies to unfold with effortless perfection. Their dedication forms the invisible foundation supporting royal splendor. The Queen also develops a quiet respect for time itself. Everything changes even within the seemingly timeless walls of the palace. Young trees grow tall enough to shade garden paths. Buildings are repaired, expanded, and redesigned. New generations of servants replace those who retire after decades of loyal service. Children once carried through palace corridors in their nurses' arms eventually return as adults dressed in fine ceremonial robes. The passage of years leaves gentle marks upon everyone, from the king himself to the humblest stable boy. Evenings often conclude with music. A small group of musicians gathers in one of the private chambers, playing softly, while members of the royal household relax after another demanding day. Lutes, viols, recorders, and harps blend together in melodies that fill the room without overwhelming conversation. For a little while, politics fades into the background. Laughter returns naturally. Stories from childhood are shared. The Queen catches glimpses of ordinary humanity beneath extraordinary titles. Sometimes Henry reflects upon his younger years. He recalls tournaments where he was celebrated as one of Europe's finest athletes, diplomatic meetings filled with optimism, ambitious dreams for England's future, and moments when the burdens of kingship seemed lighter than they do now. The Queen listens patiently, recognizing that even the most powerful ruler occasionally longs for the confidence and simplicity of youth. Age brings wisdom, but it also carries memories impossible to revisit, except through conversation. The palace library grows quieter as night deepens. Candles burn low while scribes continue copying important documents with astonishing precision. Their quills glide steadily across parchment, preserving treaties, letters, religious texts, and official records for generations yet unborn. Few people notice their work, yet history itself depends upon these careful hands, ensuring that today's events will still be remembered centuries later. Looking beyond the palace gates, England appears peaceful on many evenings. Farmers return home from the fields, fishing boats drift toward shore. Market squares gradually empty as merchants pack away their goods. Children chase one another through village lanes before their parents call them inside for supper. Smoke rises gently into the fading light as families gather around their own fireplaces, living lives far removed from the glittering ceremonies of court. The Queen often wonders whether their simpler existence brings a kind of freedom impossible to find within palace walls. There are moments when silence itself becomes meaningful, standing alone in the chapel after evening prayers, watching snowfall cover the gardens without a single sound, listening to rain fall steadily against ancient rooftops, walking through empty galleries before dawn, while only distant footsteps echo through the corridors. These peaceful intervals remind the Queen that beneath all the grandeur, life is ultimately made of quiet moments rather than dramatic ones. As years become decades, the palace gathers layer upon layer of stories. Every generation adds its own joys and sorrows. Weddings celebrated with magnificent processions, births welcomed by ringing church bells, farewells spoken quietly beneath candlelight, victories announced with trumpets, losses mourned in solemn silence. The walls remember them all, even when people do not. If someone were to ask the Queen what surprised her most about life beside Henry VIII, she might not speak first about the jewels, the feasts, or the magnificent castles. She might instead describe the extraordinary discipline required to remain graceful under constant observation, the quiet strength needed to carry private worries while presenting a calm face to the world, and the remarkable resilience demanded by a life in which every personal joy or sorrow became a matter of public interest. To be Henry VIII's wife was not simply to wear England's crown. It was to become part of a living institution larger than any single person. It meant understanding that every gesture, every word, every decision, and every expression contributed to the image of the monarchy itself. Yet beneath all the ceremony remained an ordinary human heart, beating steadily beneath embroidered silk, hoping for peace, cherishing moments of genuine happiness, and searching for comfort in a world where power brought unimaginable privilege, but never guaranteed lasting security. That delicate balance between splendor and vulnerability is what truly defined the life of a Tudor queen, making it one of the most fascinating and deeply human experiences in all of history. As another year begins, the palace seems almost unchanged, Yet you know better than anyone that nothing here remains the same for long. New faces arrive with hopeful ambition, believing they will make their fortunes at court. Others quietly disappear, returning to distant estates or fading from royal favour without ceremony. The great halls remain magnificent. The towers still rise proudly above the countryside, and the royal banners continue to flutter in the wind. But the people beneath them are constantly changing. Court life resembles a river. It appears steady from a distance, yet every moment new waters flow through it. The Queen gradually develops an extraordinary awareness of time. She notices how candlelight changes during the evening, how the first rays of morning sun always strike the chapel windows before reaching the gardens, and how autumn fog settles low across the palace grounds just before harvest. These small observations become comforting because they remind her that while politics may be unpredictable, nature follows its own dependable rhythm. Every sunrise arrives without consulting kings, and every season unfolds according to laws far older than the Tudor dynasty. The royal clockmakers maintain intricate timepieces imported from Europe, marvels of engineering for their age. Their gentle ticking echoes softly through certain chambers, marking each passing hour with unwavering precision. Looking at these clocks, the Queen sometimes reflects on how differently time is experienced inside the palace. Ordinary people measure it by planting seasons, market days, and church festivals. At court, time is measured by coronations, treaties, royal births, diplomatic visits, and moments that will eventually fill history books. The palace rooftops offer one of the most breathtaking views in England. From the highest towers, the countryside stretches endlessly in every direction. Rivers wind through green valleys like polished silver ribbons. Church spires rise above distant villages. Herds of deer wander through royal parks, while forests fade into the horizon beneath changing skies. Standing there, the Queen realizes how vast the kingdom truly is. The decisions made within these stone walls affect thousands of people she will never meet. People whose names will never appear in royal records, but whose lives are shaped by every law, every treaty, and every royal decree. As evening approaches, craftsmen often complete the day's work. Masons set aside their chisels after shaping another block of limestone. Gardeners carefully water newly planted flowers before the fading light disappears. Stable hands brush horses until their coats shine in the glow of lanterns. Kitchen servants prepare ingredients for tomorrow's meals long after everyone else has retired. The palace never truly sleeps because tomorrow's ceremonies begin long before tomorrow itself arrives. Zone of the Queen's greatest pleasures is observing the changing gardens throughout the year. Roses climb ancient walls during summer, filling the air with fragrance. Lavender borders attract countless bees, creating a gentle humming that drifts across the pathways. Carefully trimmed hedges form elegant patterns, viewed best from upper windows. Fruit orchards reward months of patient care with apples, pears, cherries, and plums. Every flower blooming beneath the palace windows represents hours of unseen labour by gardeners, whose devotion transforms ordinary soil into living works of art. There are afternoons devoted entirely to correspondence. Sheets of fine parchment cover polished tables, while ink slowly dries beside neatly folded letters. Some messages travel only a few miles to nearby noble estates. Others begin journeys lasting weeks across mountains and seas before reaching France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, or the Italian states. Every letter must be carefully written because once it leaves the palace, its words cannot be taken back. Diplomacy often depends as much upon thoughtful language as upon armies or wealth. The Queen gradually becomes fascinated by the palace's oldest traditions. Some ceremonies have been performed in nearly identical fashion for generations. Certain prayers are spoken using words repeated by countless monarchs before her. Particular pieces of jewellery are worn only during coronations or major religious festivals. Ancient swords, crowns, and ceremonial staffs pass from one generation to the next, carrying centuries of history within objects that remain remarkably unchanged. Henry himself enjoys discussing architecture. He takes pride in expanding royal residences, believing magnificent buildings reflect a magnificent kingdom. New courtyards appear where old gardens once stood. Windows grow larger, allowing more sunlight into grand chambers. Decorative carvings become increasingly elaborate as Renaissance influences spread across Europe. Walking through these newly completed halls, the Queen sometimes imagines future generations admiring them long after everyone living today has become part of history. Not every visitor comes seeking political advantage. Pilgrims, scholars, inventors, musicians, physicians, and craftsmen all hope to present their talents before the royal family. A clockmaker demonstrates an ingenious mechanism unlike anything previously seen in England. A musician performs melodies learned while travelling through Italy. A physician describes new medical theories developing on the continent. These encounters remind the Queen that learning never truly ends, even for those occupying the highest positions in the land. During particularly quiet evenings, the royal household gathers in smaller chambers rather than the enormous Great Hall. Conversation becomes more relaxed. Someone recalls humorous incidents from childhood. Another shares stories about unusual customs observed while travelling abroad. Musicians play softly in the corner while the fire crackles warmly. Without the pressure of formal ceremony, laughter comes more naturally. For a few precious hours, the king, queen, and their closest companions resemble an ordinary family, enjoying one another's company, rather than the rulers of an entire kingdom. As age gradually touches everyone at court, the Queen begins to appreciate the value of memory. Familiar servants recall celebrations held decades earlier with astonishing clarity. Elderly gardeners point toward trees planted when Henry first became king. Musicians still remember songs performed during long-forgotten weddings. Every corner of the palace contains invisible layers of remembrance, preserved not in books, but in the minds of those who have lived there for many years. The Queen often notices children staring in amazement during public ceremonies. Their eyes widen at the sight of golden crowns, richly decorated horses, and guards wearing polished armour that gleams beneath the sunlight. To them, the royal family appears almost magical. Watching their expressions brings a quiet smile, because she remembers feeling the same wonder long ago, before experience revealed how much responsibility hides beneath outward splendour. Sometimes the palace grows astonishingly quiet after visitors depart. Empty corridors echo differently. Banquet tables stand cleared. Candles burn lower than usual. After weeks filled with celebrations and diplomatic meetings, this silence feels almost unfamiliar. Yet within that stillness lies an opportunity to breathe deeply, reflect upon recent events, and prepare for whatever challenges the future may bring. The Queen eventually realizes that history often favors dramatic moments because they are easier to remember. Battles, coronations, weddings, and political revolutions fill the pages of chronicles. Yet the true character of a person's life is shaped far more by ordinary days than extraordinary ones. It is formed during peaceful walks through gardens, patient conversations beside the fire, quiet acts of kindness, careful decisions made without applause, and countless mornings when duty is embraced without complaint. Late one evening, after the final candles have been extinguished throughout most of the palace, the Queen pauses beside an open balcony overlooking the sleeping grounds. Moonlight washes gently across stone towers and silent courtyards. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp grass and distant wood smoke. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, a church bell marks another passing hour. The kingdom rests peacefully, unaware of the thoughts occupying its queen. She reflects upon everything this extraordinary life has given her. Magnificent palaces beyond imagination, priceless works of art, conversations with the greatest scholars, ambassadors, and leaders of her age, the privilege of influencing history from the very center of power. She also reflects upon everything it has demanded in return: patience during uncertainty, grace under constant observation, courage through disappointment, wisdom in moments of crisis, and the quiet endurance required to place the needs of the kingdom before personal comfort. Perhaps that is the deepest truth about being Henry VIII's wife. It was never merely about sharing the throne of England. It was about carrying invisible responsibilities every hour of every day. Responsibilities that could never be set aside, even for a single afternoon. It meant living in a world of astonishing beauty, while accepting that beauty alone could never protect the heart from sorrow. It meant discovering that true strength was not displayed through crowns or ceremonies, but through the ability to remain compassionate, composed, and hopeful, even when the future remained uncertain. Long after the banquets ended, the music faded, the candles burned out, and the great Tudor kings and queens became names in history books. The stone walls of their palaces